Welcome everyone to Comics From The Multiverse, episode 313. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, bangarang.
Carter is not here, but we actually have a confirmation, is what I'm trying to say. He will be back next week. So if you've been waiting on some Patreon books or something, don't worry, he's here to pay his debt next week.
A ginger always repays their debt.
Do they?
No, I don't know. I was making a Game of Thrones joke.
I don't know if he does, but yeah, so he'll be back next week. We are DC Comics podcast still. We get together, we talk about DC books that we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we have Dark Crisis issue 2. We have Batman issue 125, which is the start of the new run. We got Flashpoint Beyond issue 3, Batman Killing Time issue 5, Poison Ivy issue 2, DC vs. Vampires issue 7, and I've got a couple of Patreon books to talk about this week. I'll be looking at American Vampire issue 27 and Animal Man issue 21, so that is what's coming up on this week's show. It is another late news week. I think we're just in a holding pattern until solicits, but at this point.
Yep.
So, don't expect any news. Do I have any personal news to share? I don't think I do.
I mean, no, but there is. If people really want to take part on a fun internet thing, Mitch Garrett said that if his Riddler one-shot that he's doing reaches 100,000 pre-orders by the 17th, which is next Sunday from when we record.
Is that the final order cutoff?
Yeah, it's the final order cutoff, and he's going to get this demented Riddler tattoo on him. So I might order 2 just to help us along. It's the idea of this being on him forever. Would be great. But yeah, it's all over his Twitter. So
only 99,998 to go.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure it's pretty up there, and that's why he did it, because I think it was just close enough to seem doable, but maybe just out of reach that he's safe. So let's prove him wrong.
I mean, it's a bad book, so yeah, it probably is.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Pre-ordering well enough, but yes.
It's King and Garrett's doing Riddler, so yeah. I like King's Riddler in Killing Time and in his Batman run during the War Jokes and Riddles, so I'm gonna read it anyways. Might as well order a physical and try to stick a dumb tattoo on Mitch.
Why not?
Yeah.
That sounds like a plan to me. Yeah, pretty quiet week, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
Did anything interesting happen this week at all? Well, I mean, politically there was some wild stuff, but let's not talk about that.
Yeah, in your neck of the woods, I had to message Connor, A, to see how he's doing, because I've talked to him in a minute, and B, have him explain that whole situation to me.
I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about the assassination of the former Japanese Prime Minister.
Shit. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, weird week from that side of the spectrum of topics, but as far as comic book stuff goes, not that exciting a week.
I saw Thor: Love and Thunder.
Like I said, not that exciting a week.
Yeah, I saw what else? That was about it. Watch wrestling, getting into happy endings. Trying to think what else.
That got a happy ending this week? I don't know why I know that.
No, it's a TV show, guys. Get your man out the gutter. Although it's one of those ones where I always forget about how much I like Alicia Cuthbert until she shows up in something from 10 years ago. It's like we watched House of Wax last Halloween season, and it's very watchable, and she's very good in it. And I remember telling my wife, "Man, where's she been? She needs to be in more things. She's pretty good." And now we're watching Happy Endings, and I said the same exact thing. So. She's very funny. What else? That's it. We talked Stranger Things a little bit off book last week.
Oh yeah, because it was all spoilery, so we didn't want to do that on the show.
Yeah, no, we what else notable happened? I mean, we talked wrestling in a chat, so I don't know if you've watched Rampage yet.
I haven't, but I mean, I don't think most of our audience cares about what we think about AEW right now.
No, but I'm just saying, this is the stuff that we normally talk about that I just pretty uneventful. Summer, it's hot.
Yeah,
here.
It's a weird quiet week. I really don't. It feels weird to come in and be like, the news this week is there's no news on any front whatsoever.
Now I'm looking just for any like little things, and outside of like a preview for that that World Without a Justice League book, DC really has nothing. I mean, Dreamer's making a mainstream debut in Superman Son of Kal-El.
They'll probably, I mean, there's probably going to be some early previews next week, but they're up to solicits. But normally you get at least some. I mean, the week after solicits is always dead, but it's kind of weird that it's been like 2 or 3 weeks in a row without anything. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
Nothing.
Predators is still pretty mildly just mediocre movie. Just
I like it compared to the Shane Black one. I'll take Predators.
Well, sure. If you pick something terrible and try and compare it to it, anything can succeed. But compared to the glory of Predator 2, it's this mediocre trash.
True, but that's a high bar, right? Like that's
most people wouldn't agree that that's a high bar, Matt.
But it's watched to me. That's a cable classic like that you can just put on and watch. My stepdad used to watch it all the time in the garage, so because it was just on TV all the time back in the 90s. But no, I liked Predators. It was a fun. Granted, I haven't seen it since the theater, so maybe it doesn't hold up. 12 years later.
I wouldn't say it does.
Yeah.
That was what we did this week on the Atomic Cinema Experiment, which is why it's fresh in my brain. For anyone who's curious why I randomly brought it
up. I am still clear on the Prey. I haven't seen any Prey, anything except for posters. So I'm trying to stay clear until that drops next month, the new one. So far so good. Me and a friend made a pact to stay unspoiled as possible. But yeah.
I'm hopeful. All right. Well, not to worry. If news fails, there's always time for a Comixology top 10.
I always think if I can keep him talking, he'll forget. Forgets.
It is persistent. It's consistent. It's going to be there forever. Even when there's no news, there'll be a Comixology top 10.
Persistent and consistent. The Peter story.
So yes, Matt, would you like to guess what number 1 is right now?
Not only I'm going to call my shot right now. Not only am I going to guess, I'm going to get it right. But it's Saga is at number 1.
It is not. But
damn it!
Nice try. No, it's DC. DC take the top spot.
Oh, Batman.
It is Batman. Batman 125 is the number 1 comic right now on Comixology. Which is technically now Amazon.com/Kindle/comic/ but you know what I mean.
I only said Saga because there was so many on the shelf at my comic shop. They really ordered that.
Now, Batman's number 1. Number 2 is Dark Crisis, so the DC event still doing quite well. Number 3 is Saga. And then number 4 is Legion of X issue 3. Number 5 is Amazing Spider-Man issue 5. Once again, I'll just remind everyone that John Romita Jr. is doing art on that book, and
fun.
Yeah, I'm just happy
he's fighting DC. Tombstone on the cover, I think, if I can believe JRJR's art.
Tombstone or maybe Grant Morrison, that push. It's hard to tell.
Grant's gone really pale, if that's the case.
Well, they are Scottish. I mean, it's
true.
Number 6 is Flashpoint Beyond issue 3.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Number 7 is Sabretooth issue 5, which is the final issue of that miniseries. Number 8 is DC vs. Vampires issue 7. Number 9 is Batman Killing Time issue 5. And number 10 is Batman 89 issue 6, which is the final issue of that mini. So for those of you who were keeping track there, that is a very healthy 6 out of the 10 of the top 10 there are DC Comics, which is nice. Big difference from last week, actually. Looking just further down the list a little bit, number 12 was Joker's final issue, issue 15. Number 14 is that Black Adam, one of those Black Adam one-shots that's building up to the movie. And number 15 was Poison Ivy. And I'm looking for, I was looking for Monkey Prince. I actually found the Teen Justice book somewhere down in the low 20s. But Monkey Prince not on the first page, which I guess isn't surprising. But
no, it's kind of a shame. I missed that one this week. I didn't have time, so I'll have to catch up.
Yeah. Well, basically, Matt ditched Monkey Prince for Poison Ivy. Now he's got a redhead to choose.
You know it.
Essentially, what's happened.
with Takara art. Get out of here.
Yeah. So interesting. Oh, what's this bad boy here? Aliens, the original year's Omnibus Volume 1. Is that different from the old omnibuses that Dark Horse used to always put out?
Not a clue.
I think it is. It's got a lot more pages by the looks of it. It looks like it's about twice the size of those, so maybe they're condensing all those old Dark Horse stories into smaller books. I think I have like the first 4 of the old omnibuses on Comixology from an old sale a long time ago. So
Gotcha.
it caught my eye. It wasn't super high up, but it was like down near the low end of the.
I'm still shocked you're not reading the Philip Kennedy Johnson Alien book.
It's because of the art. It's
No, I know, but still, I figured like by now you would have given in with how good the story's been that Johnson's done. Figured you would have.
I'll probably try and give it a try at some point, but right now it's just it's hard to take. I'm also just noticing here there's a Power Rangers book called Mighty Morphin, just Mighty Morphin, and it's on issue 21. I didn't realize they had a longer, well, it's not huge, but it's not a mini, it's an ongoing book and it's 20 issues now. I did not realize that was a thing. So I thought I'd mention that too. But there you go. That is the Comixology top 10 for the week. So happy days. So we can just talk about comics.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to talk about this week. It's really quite shocking. I should have asked for like a topic or something from the audience.
Something.
Maybe they could have given us a talking point. Although if they said in who would you put in your Justice League, I would have just like banned them.
Ignored it.
Yeah. Like, no, you're banned now for life. I'm sick of that question. That question will never be fresh again.
My go-to answer now is Poison Ivy 5 times.
I mean, that's not a Justice League. That's Matt Hiram fantasy.
Wait, what?
Hiram? What do you say?
No, I know. I was playing dumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to define that for the audience. Look it up. Just Google Hiram and you can see what that meant. So yeah, let's get into the comics then. Dark Crisis issue 2. Jorge Williamson writing with Daniel Sampere on the art. We left last issue with Deathstroke leading an army of supervillains after the Titans Tower, as well as teasing some other things around the cosmos. This issue starts with a kind of a bit of a refresher on Pariah for people. Just him losing his world. He wants it back. He wants to destroy Earth Zero because that's the only way to bring back the infinite, multiverse, or the infinite Earths specifically, I should say. So that's the little teaser, and it goes straight to Titan's Tower. And Nightwing is beat to shit. Some of the younger heroes are dragging him into the tower. They're all scared. Bunch of C-list villains show up, and all goes down. Deathstroke shows up, says that a lot of other heroes around the world have been targeted, and we see who some of those are, and some little bullseye panels, and they bring out Beast Boy. They do actually reveal here that Beast Boy is probably not going to be dead. That because he's a shapeshifter, it doesn't really matter they shot him in the head because technically he's
I do like that it shows Slade's familiarity. That he goes, we've dealt with him so many times, we're not even sure if where his brain is, which is a nice also slam on Beast Boy.
Yeah, but obviously not without making a dig that it possibly might not exist.
Right.
Because Beast Boy, the dum. But yeah, all boils down to this showdown where Deathstroke wants a one-on-one fight with Dick and hands him his sticks. He gets up. We get a great 2-page spread of just so good. Lots of panels of just elbows and punches and all sorts into each other's faces. And Dick does actually kind of get the upper hand by the end. He knocks him down, and he's trying to win the fight, but all the other villains just start grabbing the young kids and saying, "Hey, if you don't back down, we're going to kill, Roundhouse and some of these other youngsters that I don't know the name of."
Yeah, the Titans Academy kids.
Yeah, so he's actually just willing to give himself up. He's like, "Kill me and let everyone else go." He's doing a full heroic thing, and that's when John swoops in and takes the bullets, and it's like, "Oh, okay, Superman moment."
Yeah, you cut it a little close. I didn't like that.
got your dad's timing, I think was the exact phrase.
Yeah.
So, Deathstroke has prepared for this a little bit, though, because Cyborg Superman swoops in to try and take on John. So they go fighting in the rain and the lightning, and very biblical, up in the sky, throwing each other around, all that kind of stuff.
Is it Slade or Cyborg Superman that's talking to John about being an imposter?
The Cyborg Superman, because John says, you're not my father, and he's like, well, neither are you.
Yeah. And he's like, I know what it's like to try to live in that shadow, and it's impossible. And it's almost like he's just trying to seed these doubts into John, that we've seen, kind of like this darkness. That's been affecting everyone else.
Basically, Pariah calls Deathstroke away. Pariah's like in his head, whispering things to him, and calls him away because there's other things to do. His whole point is that he needs all the heroes alive for something, because he's, as he says, there's a crisis coming, and he needs heroes on Earth Zero to be alive. But, so he calls them away, they all leave through portals. The Superman and Cyborg Superman fight kind of wraps up by them crashing through the top of the building. Cyborg shows up to help keep him down. Everyone kind of takes a moment in the rain to hug, kind of like recuperate after the moment. And then Black Adam shows up and criticizes John. See, I knew you weren't ready to alien Justice League. And apparently the person I thought was ready, which was Nightwing, I was wrong about, because this is a complete train wreck. Look at this. And I'm like, dude, like, do you even know there was something going on?
It was a sneak attack. Like, come on, man. No, it just shows how much of a jerk that Black Adam still is.
Black Adam says, I need to lead this new Justice League. It's time for me to take over, because you children just can't do it. So, there's a lot of stuff here. I really like the fight between Nightwing and Deathstroke. It felt like a big mano-a-mano thing. It felt like it was sort of, just drenched in the history of the New Teen Titans, and like sort of using all that history to make it mean something. The Black Adam setup at the end is just kind of like, okay, that's where we're going next, so I'm curious to see what they do with that. But this was like 2/3 of the comic. This was quite a lot of the issue, was all this stuff at Titan's Tower.
Sampere kills it in that fight with the rain. Like the cover doesn't do that fight justice, right? Like, it's really kinetic. It's just the shots that they use, the way that the breakdowns go.
It feels like hard, but it feels like they're beating each other to a pulp.
Yeah.
And that Nightwing Deathstroke fight, and then even the fight with the two Supermans. In the sky, like I love just the rain and the lightning, and you can almost hear it, and as you're reading it, because you're just imagining them having this fight in the sky. It's like a good version of that shitty fight at the end of Matrix Revolutions, where Smith and Neo are fighting in the sky in the rain, but better, obviously.
I'll take your word. I haven't seen that since the theater. So,
well, I hadn't seen it in a long time, but I did it on the Ace just before the fourth one came out. And oh boy, like the memories came flooding back as I was watching that. So we cut to space, and we're introduced to Kyle Rayner, who's on a ship. He's escaping, making a bit of a prison break, as it were. And just as he's about to get out, both Hal, and Joe show up, and this is actually the first time Kyle gets to meet Joe. So introduces himself. He finds out the Justice League are dead, and that the speedsters are off trying to find Barry, and it's like, this is basically them recruiting Kyle back into the Corps. So we get this big full page spread of like the Green Lantern Corps, because Joe and Hal came in to get him out of the ship, but when they come outside, like what's left of the Corps is all sort of hanging around outside. So you see Jessica, you see Simon, you see Guy, you see Kilowog, the whole
John noticeably absent, so I wonder what's going on in his book. Oh wait, he was with the Justice League.
He's dead.
Good Lord, I forgot. Oh.
You're lucky you realized that, because I was about to chew you out for that.
Yeah, that's right. He was the GL that was with the team. Good Lord.
What's happened to John? I don't know, the whole thing, the death of the Justice League, man.
Yeah. I forgot he showed back up for that. Yeah.
That's funny stuff.
But yeah, it was good to see Kyle. So this is tied to what was going on there, right? Where all the rings stopped working. So he's probably been locked up since.
Like, I mean, everyone else seems to have a ring. So clearly, like I say, we stopped reading the Green Lantern books. I don't know if this actually is explained in there, but they all have rings again. And Hal, if you notice, he's holding a ring in his hand for Kyle. So it's like, okay, we're we're getting everyone back together, and we're going to go and help save Earth, and indeed the multiverse, I suppose.
Two big weeks for Hal in comics. You know, he had Swamp Thing last week. Get him making this big entrance in Dark Crisis. So
yeah. You know, I enjoyed this issue. I mean, I think some people may argue it doesn't move things forward too much, and I think that is true. But I did enjoy all of the showdown stuff at Titan's Tower, and I like this tease of all the Green Lantern Corps getting back together, and seeing Joe, completely integrated with the others is really nice.
Yeah.
Because I think the one thing Kayla knows about her that he's heard is that, oh, you're like a great detective, right? And she's like, I solved a few cases. So they're incorporating like what her book was about into her character.
That's good. Yeah, if we're not moving the story fine, that's fine, because it gave us good character beats. Like with John fighting Cyborg Superman, and Dick versus Slade, and just playing on all of that.
It's actually something I've become a bit more frustrated by recently, just in general, because the Boys season 3 finished this week, and I heard some people say that the season felt like filler to them, because it didn't change the status quo enough, and I feel like most people don't respect like character arcs and like characters going through things. And don't get me wrong, things can absolutely feel like filler. They can, but I think people are a bit quick to jump to that statement, just because they don't feel the plot has moved forward enough.
Yeah, it's one of those things I feel like social media is kind of ruined, because now everyone has a voice, and I feel like they see something and then they repeat it without fully understanding. And sometimes people are right, like you said. Sometimes there are stuff that feels like filler. But if you get good character stuff, I mean, how do you define filler is my question. Because like,
I mean, it is tough. I mean, it's more a feeling than anything. But basically, it's just the absence of any substance. And I would say that, generally speaking, the couple of examples was this season of The Boys and season 5 of The Expanse. I heard a lot of this, that it was filler because it didn't do enough, and I thought that was one of the best seasons of the whole show, because the character drama was so good, and the way it was like paying off like all the character stuff that had been building for seasons. But to some people, if it's not the greater plot moving forward, then it's that's and to me the character stuff is equally important, if not more so important than the greater plot. So
I mean, it always we haven't talked about Firefly in a very long time, but like, Out of Gas is my favorite episode of that whole thing, and that's
a character piece.
It's how the ship came together, how the crew, and it takes time from the quote greater narrative, but you get to know all these characters, and it twists some of the things that you thought you knew about them.
And don't get me wrong, I do think these examples of TV that I'm giving are a bit different to a comic book, where you can feel like an issue of an arc is filler.
But I just feel like with this whole idea of the Dark Crisis, that this darkness is almost like a nihilism, or it's entropy, or it's nothingness, right? That I feel like if they are fighting nothingness, making us feel for these characters is something that's going to pay off in the end. No, I mean, you can't do this every issue, but I think the point of this issue is to make you really want to root for Dick and John beyond anyone else. Right.
So
and then you get a good fist pump moment when Hal shows up, with Joe to save Kyle, and Kyle's got a great moment, and
they ruined a lot of it by having Guy in that last page, but other than that,
no, how dare you, sir? So, but I mean, I don't know. Again, what is filler? This gets thrown around a lot with like, I know you hated it based off the first episode with Obi-Wan, people calling it filler because it didn't give them exactly what they thought that was going to happen. But if you just sit back and watch the story, it was actually a pretty good story about a man coming to terms with his faith. And that takes a lot of character stuff because he's in his head. And,
I mean, I disagree with you on just based on the first episode. I disagree with this. I thought that was just a slog of a meandering episode that had no spark to it whatsoever. But I mean, that's where the
Adam Sandler I disagree meme. So, I know it gets thrown around a lot, and I'm seeing it too with a lot of the Marvel shows. But it's hard to argue with some of that because some of them, it's everything in this phase is
they're not that good, honestly. Like, overall, it's not that good.
I know we were talking about it last night walking the dogs after Love and Thunder, and like for me, Hawkeye has been the best thing to come out of it, and that was because it was character focused, and it wasn't we don't have to move the story after 10 plus years of this Infinity Saga. I think it's okay. And I mean, you can have issues with all the shows, right? Like stuff not landing, like Loki being a mess and WandaVision, but for the sake of things, just like sit back and try to enjoy stuff. And I don't know. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I hate this filler as just a derogatory. It's almost filler itself that you don't know how to say like, oh, they didn't land with me. It's filler. But now I gotta get caught up on the boys, because if you're saying it's all character stuff, that's the stuff I was digging on that show.
Some things can absolutely just be filler, right? It is something that can be a valid thing to say, but it is used as a shortcut. And I would argue that filler is the negative version of a positive thing that I also hate. And you're guilty of this, Matt, is when you just say, oh, it's just fun, and then just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's basically the two sides of the same coin, which is just like hand waving. Either, on one side you're hand waving away good things and saying it's filler, or the other side you're hand waving away bad things and saying it's fun.
Right. So when I do that on the show, it's just because I don't want to get into an argument with you that lasts 10 minutes.
Good chance of that.
Yeah, so like, if you catch me on Twitter though, we can have a conversation about why stuff works, and but like there's sometimes I come in and I thought I didn't like a book until I start talking about it. And then when I talk about it and start to break it down, and you think, sometimes you gotta. I feel too many people are trying to get their opinions out as fast as possible, and that's how we get too much of the shorthand. And
yeah. But I mean, my critique isn't necessarily aimed specifically at social media. It's just something that I've been noticing becoming more of a thing, and obviously sometimes I'll disagree with opinions, sometimes I'll agree with them. That's not that weird, but there's definitely some trends I'm noticing where there's certain just broad stroke like buzzwords being used to describe certain things, and it's frustrating. I mean, at the same time though, there are like legit criticisms that can become buzzwords where you agree with the core thing, but then it gets kind of bastardized because people just start throwing it around willy-nilly. For example, I am someone who thinks most Marvel media right now has no stakes, but people throw that phrase around so much that it's become basically meaningless.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. But that was funny though, because I was noticing I could watch you going further into a tangent in real time. So I'm blaming Matt for that.
No, that's fine. I just with this book, because like you said, we hit the character stuff, we hit the art. There's not much else to go off of, but it's still, I really enjoyed it. Like, it was a good read. It lived up to, I got it physically, so I got it later, and it lived up to me waiting a couple days to read it. Especially being a Dick Grayson fan, and just him getting that moment right there, him fighting Slade to a standstill, basically. But I also feel it's because Slade's also under the influence of whatever that darkness is, right? Whatever Pariah did to the Lazarus pit, It's
it's a sort of issue that you kind of wish it was double shipping, because because it does feel like it's like, oh, another month before we advance anything again. Like I do get that criticism, but there was nothing in the book that I didn't like though.
No, that's exactly. I have nothing else. Like, no other real negative. Like, I can't. It was just an all-around good time. Like, again, I enjoyed what I read, and I don't want to say fun because I'm self-conscious. It was darkly fun. How about that? Because, like, the Beast Boy thing, again, I was like, I can't believe Williamson killed off Beast Boy. And then when Slade throws him down and questions if he even has a brain, I was just like, oh, man. Like, that's even worse than just a dead body. It's insult to injury.
Yeah. All right, we give a Dark Crisis issue 2.
I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, I'm kind of hovering the same place. I don't think it feels quite as big as issue 1 did, but I'm liking what it's building to. So I might go a nudge lower and go 7.5. I might be just a touch harsher. But there you go. That's Dark Crisis issue 2. Batman issue 125. Chip Zdarsky writing with Jorge Jimenez on the art. So this is the start of a brand new run. Chip's coming in. Obviously, he's been doing the Night, the miniseries, but this is him taking over the main book. And there's a lot of big things going down here. It kind of drops us in the middle of a story in a weird way, where there's already these like targeted killings happening of the elite, specifically the elite who were born into wealth. Like it's Penguin who's targeting them, but he's not targeting anyone who earned their money from scratch. It's only people who were born, I think he says, with like over 5 million already to their name.
Yeah, but this, he calls them the Silver Spooners.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to say real quick too, I read the first 2 trades of Chip's Daredevil, and I'm so glad I have before this, because he has a knack for the city kind of storytelling, right? Where there's a lot of stuff in motion, and he balances it all very well. Like, I feel like coming off of Tynion, and you know, who had a very distinct way of writing Batman and doing things, this already just feels like Chip's Batman. And I don't know if that's because of the night, that we're kind of used to how he writes Bruce, but just the way that he drops us into Gotham in the mid of everything, and we're already kind of familiar with some of the stuff. It's a skill that this guy has, and I'm really, really glad he's doing Batman.
Yeah. I don't love the issue. I mean, I generally like a lot of stuff that it does, but there's definitely concerns I have in here, and there's definitely some moments that felt a little off to me. And I don't know. I mean, as we go through it, I'll sort of point some of them out, but it wasn't like a home run. Like, part of me, because I think his first issue of Daredevil's better, and I think I was coming into this expecting like the same thing for Batman, where it was just going to be instantly, oh, this feels special, and this feels like it's doing these things for the character. And it might become that, but there's definitely some things that don't quite click with me. Some stuff that it feels like we've shifted a little bit to serve what he wants to do with Batman. I mean, it does reference other things in recent continuity. It does do that, absolutely does. But some characterizations feel a little bit different. And I would say that the villain that's teased by the end, I'm not entirely sure I'm excited about.
That's where it went off the rails for me. I was enjoying everything to that. When I got to that character, I was kind of like, what are we doing? And it could work out. Like, I could be just jumping the gun. But based off of just this one issue, you know, I did like the Penguin stuff, though, because it's been a while since Penguin's really had a moment to, like, really be greasy, and just him doing this, and just him saying that he's going after the people that were born into it because they're not trying to make the city better. It's very griftery. It's very much like, well, no, he's the same. Like, he's a
hypocrite. Yeah, he was borrowing money. Yeah.
But you know, people are just gonna jump on it, and they're like, oh, well, they're killing rich people. It doesn't impact me, you know. And it's almost like he gets a public support on it at a certain point, and yeah,
because the book starts with like a scene that's, you know, from the past. It says another time, and you see Alfred in the cave, and he hears like some beeping in the cave, and that's just all it is, just a little tease. And then there's a sort of like nightmare scenario scene where a lot of the Bat family are dead, and there's like multiple Jokers sitting on top of them. And like, what is this?
Like, is this or is this the 3 Jokers?
Yeah, what are we doing here, Zdarsky? Come on. And then Bruce wakes up. It was a nightmare. And I got a little bit worried because the first thing that his narration says in this book is, "I never dream unless I want to. I use my subconscious to piece together a mystery." And I thought, Zdarsky, are you really going to try and tell me that Bruce is choosing to use his subconscious to solve mysteries while he's asleep? Because that is too far-fetched for me to
there's some other stuff that is borderline because Batman, but unless it keeps happening, I'm going to give it. This happened under Tynion too, where Tynion kept giving Bruce all these new toys, you know.
On this specific line, though, the very next thing he says, though, the mystery is my future. And I sort of got relieved because, okay, he's not saying he's literally solving cases. He's more being fruity with his wording than he's actually saying he's doing anything. But
yeah, and that's where I have to be like, okay, don't jump the gun, you know.
But even I got worried. I was like, oh no, that's too far. Like, no, that's superhuman. Don't
don't do that.
So he calls Selina, and so this guy, so there's a bit of an awkward bit of tension here where he's phoning Selina because he's feeling, well, not scared.
He needs someone.
Yeah, he needs someone.
He needs someone.
He phones Selina, and there's a little bit of like a sort of gulp moment when she's with someone else, and it's kind of this awkward thing because that relationship, at least as it was, is over for now, and he has to kind of accept that and move on, and it makes him feel kind of sad. Is this this douchebag we didn't like from the Catwoman book?
I think it is. That's the only guy I could think of.
See, that's upsetting.
Yeah.
But it's him. Anyone else?
Yeah. I want to give Jimenez credit here is the way that him and the letterer make that work. It is almost like a if we're watching a movie and they're cutting across the phone conversation, which I think in a comic is just it's easy just to make it clean, with the what's being heard and what's being said, but the fact that it keeps jumping back and forth, so you're reading what Batman says and then you're hearing it also when it jumps to Catwoman. Like, it's just a unique skill that I haven't seen utilized in comics.
Yeah, they are very good. The way it sells the body language of her getting uncomfortable and saying she has to go, and him being sad as he's like, yeah, it's okay, as he's looking out at the dawn. And it's the idea that he's retreating more to Batman, and that's something the Bat family bring up to him. Tim brings it up later that he's just being Batman all the time. He's not really being Bruce Wayne much. The idea that he's waking up and he's already like, oh, it's time to go to work. It's time to be Batman. So there's a killer in a building. The art here is phenomenal. Batman comes into the building, and there's just that thing where he's down the end of the hallway, and then you see the close up in the darkness of his eyes. This actually reminded me a lot of the recent movie when he walks out of the darkness.
Yeah,
it's very much that kind of moment.
Me too.
But it looks great in the comic, and he runs down, throws the guy out the window, but obviously grapples him so that he doesn't fall. But then he goes down the stairs and finds out that the family who live here are already been killed. And he then runs back up, pulls the guy in, grabs him and screams at him and says, "Who sent you? Who's behind this?" And then we get Penguin's sort of speech, his monologue as he's recording into a camera, why he's doing what he's doing. Yeah, and then that's when Tim comes in. So obviously Zdarsky's probably a Tim fan because he's choosing Tim. Well, I say that. By the end of the issue, he's kind of maybe on death's door. So maybe not.
We sure? Yeah, we sure? Which also, because of what happens and knowing that there's going to be a Tim book that I'm not going to read because the art, I was kind of like, oh, maybe this will be easy just to say goodbye to Tim right now.
Oh, dear. Bruce has still been invited to a gala thing, and he's like, okay, that's probably where Penguin's going to strike because, well, there's going to be a lot of rich people there. It makes sense. It's easy. It's simple. Some interesting bits here. He talks about how the hardest thing about protecting this city is that the city actually wants to die. Like, they're all, even though they're directly targeted under threat, they're all going to go to this gala anyway. It's kind of this, people are kind of stupid.
Yeah, they have to. They have to keep up appearances, and it's, I did like the commentary on that too. People are just
it's a little bit pandemic commentary.
A little bit. I would say it's a lot of it. So they know that there's dangers, and yet they're still going to go because they feel that they have to. And like the people that were complaining they can't go to restaurants during a global pandemic, and I was like, just all right, give it time, all right.
Yeah. So one of the victims of the previous death was actually someone that Bruce knew. It was like someone he used as Bruce Wayne to sort of play up the playboy part of his persona back when he first came back to Gotham, and it's kind of like a symbolic thing that part of him is mostly went away. So he's making an effort to go to this gala. He's got a date. He's still invited despite the fact that he has no money. Because I was actually thinking about that. Is like, oh, does that mean he's like Penguin's going to come after Bruce soon? I was like, oh no, wait, no, he lost all his money.
No,
so
he lost his money.
I guess it doesn't matter.
But I do like the idea that Bruce Wayne, the person, is still like, because we know from Detective Comics that everyone knows that he doesn't have as much money as he used to. So him still showing up to this is like one of those things that you have to keep up appearances. But it's also good cover for Batman.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Bruce and Tim working together at this gala to try and find whatever the plan is. It's probably to set off some gas. Penguin showing up with his little breather on as he's threatening all the rich people. Like, all this I generally liked. I'm not like a huge fan of the Batman in the dress shirt and
I love it
with the bat cowl on. Whatever.
It's so stupid, and I love it.
Yeah,
it's just a great visual. But yeah, it was nice seeing Batman and Robin working together in a Batman book.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Because I can't, we saw them team up in Robin during Shadow War, but it was Damian. But I can't think of the last time I saw Tim and Bruce. I almost said Tim and Dick, but Tim and Bruce team up, and it was very nice. And just the stuff that Bruce is saying about Tim, he's the Robin that wanted to be Robin. And again, like you said, it seems like Zdarsky is a Tim fan, which is cool.
Yeah, cruel Tim fan, but a Tim fan all the same.
Yeah.
But so there's a bit of a swerve here where Batman's convinced, okay, Cobblepot, I've got you, but then it's revealed, oh no, wait, you're not Cobblepot, and it's Clayface, right? Which is fine on its own, but I did think it was a bit weird that in this issue, Batman gets duped twice. So here, and then later when he goes to Penguin at the hospital, and it's all a trap to like set Batman up. I thought it was a little bit weird to have Batman essentially get in over his head. And maybe that's the point, is that he's in over his head and he's making mistakes, but it was a bit weird to do it like back to back like that, really quickly. It felt a bit repetitive, but and obviously a slight personal thing here is that I really like Clayface's redemption in Detective Comics, so I don't really like that he's just like a straight villain again, but I mean...
Yeah, I don't like that he's being used as a henchman for Penguin.
Yeah.
Like, he's better than that. Like,
But regardless, he threatens Clayface with some sort of like chemical that's in his stream. He's got a detonator for it.
Bruce was bluffing, right?
I mean, you assume he was bluffing.
Because if not, that's a very because of Batman. That I injected you with a formulation that turned you explosive, and I could detonate it now. And I was like, if he's bluffing, this works because he's tricking Basil, who, as we know, the longer he stays in his clay form, the more he loses his, human intelligence, but yeah, if he really did this, I'm just like, oh man, I don't know. That took me out a bit.
Tim gets shot by one of the henchmen as an explosion goes off, and I did like the visual, because Batman says to Clayface, protect everyone from falling debris, so he's like, sure, and he sort of becomes like a big moth, like sort of shape, and just sort of like shields them all. But what this really becomes about, though, is Tim's been shot in the neck. Bruce has to like grab him, run out to the Batmobile. Is racing to the hospital because he needs, emergency treatment. They don't have time to go to Leslie. They don't have time to go to the cave or anything like that. He has to go straight to the hospital. So he takes off his cowl, takes off some of the Robin suits, so it's not obvious who he is. And that's quite a nice swerve here, actually, because you hear the doctor saying, how's he looking? Oh, he probably won't survive the night. And you think he's talking about Tim because we're in a hospital right after we've just went to the hospital with Bruce and Tim. And then you see Batman in the corner and he looks, he's scowling, and then you realize that we're actually in the hospital room of the Penguin, which was a little bit confusing because obviously that's where Penguin was for a lot of killing time. So it was giving me like a weird, I need to keep track of which story I'm on here now. Yeah,
me too. Because I was like, wait, wait, no, this didn't happen. This wasn't him getting beat to shit by the Riddler. No. That was killing time. So.
Yeah. So no, it turns out he's just sick and he's dying. So and he kind of like sort of says that he assumes Batman's a billionaire, or at least has a billionaire who's like funding him, because it's the only way to explain like a lot of what he is. I will say some of the art here is really good. Like, see when Penguin gets angry and like sits up and yells in the hospital bed. Yeah, like that is a demented face that he's got going.
he's also Burton-esque in Jimenez drawing him, where he's almost more of a creature than a person. Yeah, especially in that scene.
Yeah, I don't mind that general look. I mean, I actually want him to be part beast though. Like like, he's still just an arms dealer to me. But
no, yeah, and that's what I mean is that we've gotten a lot of him. Like, there's a little bit of exaggerated features, but here, on Death's door, he's very beastly. Very bird-like, and almost his teeth are sharp, and his beak is up there. But yeah, it was a very grotesque image.
Yep. So yeah, it talks about how the guy that Bruce knew. He talks about how he was actually this awful guy at the Iceberg Lounge who would pick on the girls who worked there. He was a complete piece of shit. He says Batman's out of touch. But then ultimately, Penguin kills himself with a pill, and then the nurse comes in, and the whole thing is meant to look like Batman killed him. This is like Penguin's last hurrah. So Penguin dies seemingly in this issue. I mean, how long that sticks? I mean, place your bets. But
there is a dark crisis currently ongoing where we could rewrite things.
Yeah, very conveniently, actually, quite quickly. Yeah. But Penguin dies and has effectively made it look like Batman killed him. And, it's weighing at Bruce, although Bruce is trying to play it off as, it's actually kind of helping in a weird way. Everyone's scared of me again because they think I might kill them.
That was another thing that I was like, okay, Chip, this is the stuff that I like that he's bringing to it is that You know, the bad guys are giving me space because they don't want to die, which I like. Because in other times that we've seen Bruce do that, it's almost like he's beating himself up because he doesn't want people to think he's a murderer.
Yeah.
But here, him leaning into it was a nice touch.
Yeah, so he goes back to the Batcave, and that beeping starts again, and this is present day now because it says now. I will say it was a bit weird to me that it said that there and not when it first went to the present day, because it made me question what was the rest of this story in present day since it said now here. But I mean, I think it was. It's just making it clear the bit in the cave is now. And it's actually this robot called Failsafe that kind of like activates. Kind of hate it, honestly, in terms of its design. So I can see what they're doing here, right? So the whole idea, of course, is that, and Penguin didn't necessarily plan for this because he wouldn't know about Failsafe, but the idea being is that Batman himself, in a sort of Tower of Babel kind of thing, has got a contingency plan if he goes too far. And it's this robot called Failsafe. I'm assuming it's him that did this. I mean, if it wasn't, we'll find out, but I'm assuming it's him. And because in the news and stuff, it's like everything's saying Batman's killed someone, this robot is activated, it's going to come to stop Batman.
The algorithm's been tripped.
Yeah. And obviously, we know he's not actually killed anyone, so it's unjust. But at the same time, everything Tim was saying about how he's let the Bruce Wayne persona go and he's just being Batman all the time, the idea that he does need an intervention right now is true, but not necessarily what this robot's going to do. So I can kind of see what it's doing with its story, and I appreciate the threads. I saw the robot and thought this looks stupid. It's so New 52 looking at me.
It does, but I also like the idea of Chip Zdarsky writing Batman versus Terminator.
You know? If that's what it ends up being, then sure, I'll take it.
And that's what I'm talking about, like the potential that's going on here. I could be wrong, and it could disappoint, but so far, I've been in good hands because he did the Teardrop story with Red Hood, right? In
I think that was
Urban
him.
Legends?
Yeah, I think that was him.
Yeah. So far, I'm like all of the stuff I've read that he's written. It's been pretty good.
Yeah, and this isn't badly written per se. There was just enough little things that I sort of pointed out throughout that were kind of, I was like, okay, this isn't perfect. And the robot at the end was kind of the biggest thing that I didn't like. But if you're right, if this plays like Terminator hunting Batman, and that's how it actually is told, I could be very into that. This could very quickly win me over. But right now, this reveal, it didn't get me excited when this robot popped up at the end. I just kind of went, lol.
Yeah. Well, the whole Terminator thing popped up to me as we started talking. So again, with the, the more we talk about things, the more, my brain gets going, and I just,
I think my reaction to the end was, comics.
Well, I went, Failsafe, come on. There's another because Batman thing, but again, if we get, this was meant to stop him if he goes too far, and it's like a Terminator that's not going to be stopped, that's got to, go guns blazing, per se, to bring Batman in. I do like that idea.
Yeah. Of course, I'm assuming that Penguin didn't know about this and it's an accidental thing that's happening as a result of what he's done.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know if he would know, but maybe someone knew about it, and it was like a kind of someone, said, hey, frame him for murder, because now, obviously we've had Batman being framed for murder, or Bruce Wayne being framed for murder before, so... this is obviously a current continuity thing as opposed to an all-time thing, but that's okay. That's what it is.
Yeah, you had the whole Bruce Wayne fugitive story arc that was Rucka and Brubaker.
Yeah,
I believe.
And they are of course is very good. We pointed out some exceptional panels as we were going through it.
Yeah, Jimenez is just good. Batman, I liked his Justice League stuff with Snyder, but his Batman with Tynion and now Chip is just, it's really good. I don't have a lot of faults in the art. Like you said, the robot design, Failsafe's design's a little bit, like you said, New 52-ish, but maybe that's the point.
It just looks so generic. It's got like a head, kind of like it's got like a Red Hood looking head, to be honest, and then the rest of it's just this really generic design that you've seen this in like a million comic books by this point. This type of robot.
The head reminded me of IG-88 from Star Wars, the bounty hunter robot. It's just kind of up and around, and it's different. And maybe a little humanoid head would have been okay, but I don't know.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep. You mentioned Star Wars in the past.
Yeah, it's okay. I knew you would.
Yeah. There's a reason why the Terminator design's so iconic, though, is because it's just a metal skeleton, and that looks cool. This, angled anime approach that a lot of comic book robots seem to take,
Yeah, and I feel that's the influence on the artist, because I feel like we get this with Jimenez a lot. There is almost an anime tinge to his style, for better or for worse. Most of the time it works. Like a lot of his expressions on Harley end up coming across very manga-esque. But it works. Like he makes it work. Are you really? Sounds like a complaint. It's not. But yeah.
Yeah, there's a backup as well. It's called Two Birds, One Throne. And this is Zdarsky as well writing this, so it is kind of possibly relevant as time goes on. Belen Ortega is on the art for the backup. And this first part is basically the Iceberg Lounge. So the Penguins died, and the Iceberg Lounge is kind of like what was his name here? Finbar Sullivan.
Who was also in the Catwoman story when we first started reading. Because
Okay.
I only read one page of this, and I forgot to go back before we recorded the show.
A lot of synergy, but he it basically shows up with some guys with guns and says, "I'm running this place now. You work for me now." Catwoman shows up, kind of takes him down, says, "Nope, you're not doing that." And then there's like gang leaders show up, and the whole thing's a bit weird. And then eventually the underbroker shows up with a big robot dude called the Executor, who's a lawyer. He's a lawyer robot. And Penguin had a will, and until that will is complete, like no one can take over the Iceberg Lounge. Ginger beard guy just kind of says, "Fine, I'll wait until the will's read, but then I'm going to come and take it by force anyway. I'll just wait until after that." Because the Executor says, "Yeah, once we've fulfilled these obligations, we don't care what happens, but we have to, do the will and do all this." It's all a bit. It's okay. Like I wasn't super in love with it. The big thing though is that Catwoman goes home at the end, and she's just minding her business, and the Executor shows up at her door, and wants her help because there's places he can't go because he's a big hulking metal robot, and because of that, he needs her, and she's like, I'm not a bounty hunter. I don't want to help you, but he's like, I'll pay you 500 grand. She's like, all right, okay. What am I doing here? Who am I finding? And it turns out that there are 10 people that he needs her to find, and all 10 of them are Penguin's children.
Oh snap! He's got a whole nest.
That's the ending. So that's what the backup's going to be. It's going to be Catwoman hunting down Penguin's presumably illegitimate kids. I would assume. So yeah, it's okay. It's kind of an interesting thing. They're sort of like doing something in the backup that plays off like the ramifications of Penguin dying. It makes sense. It's a nice little bit of Gotham taster after the main story.
Yeah, I wish I had time to read this. I got holed up at work.
Well,
went to go back, and
then won't be hard to catch up. It's not a long.
Yeah, no, it's sitting there. That's why I read the one page and I saw Finbar Sullivan, and I got called up to go do something. And I was like, oh, that's the guy from when we read that issue of the Tynion Howard.
I am shocked you remember that.
It's a ginger dude. Of course I'm going to remember.
Shocked you to remember it, but yeah, it's okay. Like I liked the issue overall. I liked the main story more than the backup, certainly. But there's some like it wasn't like I was kind of coming at this expecting like the start of a special run that was it was going to feel like just a great running start immediately, and instead I'm like, okay, no, this was a lot of solid stuff in here. There's potential, but it needs to still simmer. It still needs to. I need more issues. I need to see where it's building to. I need to see what it's doing.
That's how I felt about the first issue of The Night, and it's really coming on its own.
That's true, and that literally just had its best issue with issue 6 or 7, whatever the last one was.
Yeah,
was its best issue so far. So if it does something similar to that where it just keeps getting better, then by all means you'll not hear me complain. But
I mean, I was gonna drop Batman for the first time in a very long time until they announced Chip, and I was like, all right, well here. I'm gonna keep going.
You're gonna threaten that at the end of every run, and then they announce the new writer.
And then they keep putting people I like. I was gonna do it with Williamson, right? I was only gonna go up to 100 with Tynion, and then Tynion's like, "Oh, I extended it," and then with Williamson, all right, I stayed on, and now with Chip, and so, yeah, man, I don't have a break. It kills me that because of the writer who won't be named, I have a break in Superman. But I have every Batman issue since I think 2005. So yeah, kills me. But when you look at those creative teams, man, like just starting in 2011, you have that Snyder run that just kept going, and then you had King, and sure, it went up and down at points, but yeah. Long story short, I have way too many Batman books.
You've heard it here first. Matt is a more dedicated Batman fan than he is a Superman fan.
Batman reader, not fan. There's a difference.
It's a potato. So yes, what are you giving Batman 125?
I'm gonna give this I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do the same as Dark Crisis. I'm going 7.5. Yeah. I think there's a few little things and little narration moments, or the robot ending, which just felt a bit silly on its own. That right now I'm going 7.5. I'm hopeful though. I am hopeful. I was kind of expecting it to just be like, like the first issue of Taylor's Nightwing, where I'm just like, yes, like right. get it in me right now. Much like Zdarsky's Daredevil, which the very first issue was like one of the best first issues I've read in the last decade. So
yeah, but I mean that's a high standard. I mean that's that's hard to do.
But it's a high standard that he set for himself, which is why it's I think a bit fairer than
Man, I still can't believe this was the artist from Sex Criminals that's doing all this stuff. Like he's just out here telling these gritty stories, and in between wiener jokes in another book. Which don't get me wrong, that first arc is very emotional of Sex Criminals, and I do recommend if you haven't read it to read it. But yeah, man, that's just crazy to me.
I mean, we've been guilty of the occasional dick joke ourselves on this podcast, so I can't really.
Yeah. I mean, when it's the double entendre, when it's a dick joke and a Dick Grayson comic, yeah, man, that's right there. That's the gold star.
All right. Flashpoint Beyond issue 3, Geoff Johns with Jeremy Adams and Tim Sheridan writing, with Xermanico and Mikel Janin on the art.
I have no idea what's going on in this book. I do, but I don't.
I'll say this. This is the first issue of this book where the first page didn't scare me away almost because it was too many narration boxes.
Yeah. So I class this book as okay. Like I'm just reading the stuff and going, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't like that Superman talks like Cass. Very short, to the point. Like good on the writers.
No, that makes sense though in this Superman.
Yeah, I know, but it's I don't know. It's weird, I guess. But that's his whole book.
He's been locked in a room with no humans to talk to for most of his life. It makes complete sense that he's got a stilted conversation style.
Yeah, but not exactly Cass. Like it just felt very much like they just took Cass's style of speaking and put it onto Superman. I don't know.
Well, what else how else do you do it and make it distinct from Cass?
I don't know. I'm realizing as I'm talking, I have no counter to it. I just, as a Superman fan, it rubbed me a little bit wrong. So,
okay. Well, yeah. So it starts off kind of with the history of the Superman of the Flashpoint universe, and it's when he landed, he came down with a meteor shower, but it was in Metropolis, so it killed thousands of people. So it was a much darker thing by comparison. So that sets up some stuff for later in the issue. Penguin's teaching Dexter Dent how to pick a lock, seemingly, and then when they get a quick glimpse of Reverse Flash just try to communicate with people, Penguin says, "I need a drink. Do you want one?" Just to continue this running joke of like Dexter Dent being taught and given things for adults that he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But
the lock picking and him telling him, "Good job, we're gonna move to tumblers," which is like the twisty locks. That was so funny to me. I don't know why, but it's just this Cobblepot is very funny.
Yeah, it was giving me a chuckle as well. So obviously Superman showed up right at the end of the last issue, so he's with Dr. Batman, and he scares off the thug, and Batman tries to punch him. Obviously it doesn't work. He just gets a broken hand, basically. And
a concussion.
Yeah, Superman knocks him out and flies him off elsewhere. Whilst Dexter's mum, Gilda Dent, is all bandaged up because she's rammed her head into the door or something in the asylum.
So many times, and they have to strap her down so she doesn't keep doing it to the other side of her face, which, giving us a cool Gilda Dent Two-Face story.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they're going to take off the bandage at some point. She's going to have a Two-Face. Yeah, it makes sense.
The fact that some darkness is talking to her, right, is the one tie that we have into the Dark Crisis, ongoings here, right?
No, I wouldn't agree with that because the font and the word bullet style is very different to the darkness in that book. Because this is white with an orange glow, whereas that's always been black with white text. So
that's true.
I don't think it's meant to be connecting them together. I think this is just...
So then she is hearing voices from somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
Whether or not it's in her head or this is just something separate that's talking to her in this universe, I would say.
And that hyper time is key because that gets brought up like 2 or 3 times through these different dialogues.
So Superman took Batman away to what his fortress currently is. He built a fortress with Swamp Thing, who's not Alec Holland.
No,
it's what would you call him?
Jason Woodrue.
Woodrue, yeah. Woodrue, Swamp Thing, Poison Ivy's there, and they've built like a fortress where all the crystals are covered in green. So you get this kind of a greenery Fortress of Solitude style thing, but it's become this haven. He's basically brought a lot of children and stuff who don't have anyone here as a sort of a big kind of fancy orphanage.
Yeah, like the ruins of Metropolis have become overgrown, and now, I did like that visual. He's made it a place of safety.
It's an interesting concept. It's it's at this point where interest is this big thing where it's like, hey, like they're here to show they brought Batman here to show him basically one of the messages from Jor-El, right? So the idea that there's these crystals. And because everything's going through the green here, it sort of appears through like veins and stuff, but it's the same idea. It's like a hologram style thing of Jor-El saying, "You're my son, I've sent you here, you're stronger, blah, 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 blah." But the big thing it reveals is different, is that Krypton is dying, it's not actually dead yet, and Jor-El's like, you were sent to sort of prep the humans and sort of, incapacitate them a bit, so that when we come in to invade and take over, so it's our planet now, we're all ready.
That's very similar to another comic book property that I don't want to spoil in case people haven't seen it or read it. But something very similar, if you know what I'm talking about, which cracked me up. That was another thing that I went, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that I liked about one of the plot pieces I liked about Flashpoint originally was the idea that this Superman, despite his upbringing, despite everything they did to him, he did still show up to help save the day at the end.
Yeah.
So they kind of try to continue that here a little bit with him immediately going, yeah, we need to stop them. Like, we need to be ready for this invasion. He's going to fight inside of Earth, and he's going to take on Jor-El.
Which we did notice. I'm glad it paid off in this issue, because I did notice other ships that when you see the baby Kal-El ship in the beginning, like you see other ships getting off of the planet too.
Yeah, Jor-El says they went to other planets to find potential homes. So, but Earth is probably the one they like because they'll get superpowers if they come to Earth.
Right.
So, yeah, Thomas is wanting nothing to do with all this though, because to him it's like, because he says, "Wait, why are you doing this? This is your father who wants to give you everything you ever should have had, and why are you trying to stop him?" And he says, "Because all these people, like humans, their lives matter." And this is challenging directly Thomas, because Thomas's whole thing in this story is that this world's not supposed to exist. So to him, now the lives matter, because everything should be about resetting it to the proper timeline so that Bruce is Batman again, and we have the world that we're supposed to have. So I do kind of appreciate. I thought that was a nice narrative touch. That it's like this is directly paralleling like how he sees the world right now. That he's saying no, the lives here don't matter, and it's not this cruel thing necessarily. Like, he has context for why he believes that, but it is kind of interesting to have this version of Superman kind of saying no, they do still matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, this universe shouldn't exist. Doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. Right, and that's what I feel like Dr. Batman has to learn. So
I'll give it credit. I thought that little narrative point there, where he says that, I thought was quite good and did sort of raise some interesting questions. Meanwhile, a dead body was found. They mention it's the home of Iris and her husband. They don't say Barry. They just say her husband. So I wonder if there's like a swerve coming there. But
because they weren't together, were they?
No, they weren't. Yeah, because obviously Barry. Yeah, that's good point. Yeah, Barry was.
Well, once there's something I want to point out, and I might just be thinking too much about all of this. But let's get to the end of this, and then I'll bring that up.
So we find out who they're looking at this crime scene. It's Bullock and I assume I don't actually know who the female couple is. But it turns out it's actually a Thawne, Reverse Flash. It says they say Tick. It's written in blood, Tick, next to his dead body on the bed. And he came here because he was looking for Barry. It makes sense that he'd come to Iris's house to do that. Right. And it's it's like, okay, so this is back to the hyper time stuff. So the last couple pages, as it has been throughout the book, is going back to like separately from the Flashpoint universe. Although this time, instead of going to the Batcave where Batman is with the little kid, here we have a couple of the other characters who are in a time bubble going through hyper time and saying that it won't hold very soon. There's a crisis coming, and all these changes. And they specifically say that Thomas shouldn't exist, and that's what they're trying to fix. But they're struggling, and they need Rip Hunter. So,
and something about Corky, who I think is the kid with the raccoon hat.
I imagine so.
Yeah, something about he's going off the rails a little bit, and that's why they need Rip. Because Corky plays around too much. And I thought that was not being familiar with these characters at all. That was a nice touch too. That maybe him talking to Batman is one of these things, that he goes too far. But yeah.
Yeah, I did. It says Nick's Dexter Dent, Robin the Boy Terror. That is kind of funny, given they've built him up enough that he's learning all these awful skills that it's actually quite funny to think that we're going to get this evil little Robin.
Yeah, but the Boy Terror. That's so funny.
It's good stuff. I mean, this is still going off in wacky directions I didn't see coming. Like, we're basically, like, because the arc's called The Clockwork Killer, if I remember right. And maybe, it's implying that that's also the same killer of Thawne, and that ties into the other murders that were in the other issues, but it feels like, oh, now we're talking about, like, Kryptonians invading and, like, building an army to, like, take them on and things. I was like, oh, where's this going? Like, we're doing all these wild things. I can't deny, though, that I like some of the details in this one.
Yeah, so I said, it's okay. Just go along with what the story that's being told. And, I love when Ivy shows up and she's an emissary for the Earth, right? Like, I do like that version of her because she talks about how Thomas killed her. But now she's an avatar for the Green, and it seems like Woodrew's like the Parliament now as the Swamp Thing, right? Like the Green kind of flows through him, but she works with it. So I like that too, and I like that's her helping Superman rebuild Metropolis as this fortress of solitude. I like that whole aspect of it. That was a fun twist.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we're going to find out that this hyper time killer or whatever it is just the Clockwork Killer, and all these murders are related. But it's doing some interesting things. I won't necessarily say it's good. It still feels like a weird thing that I don't know if it needs to exist. But I'm kind of into the insanity of it at this point.
Yeah, that's where I am too. So. Flashpoint exists because Barry went back to save his mom, right? From Thawne. And so I understand how it creates ripples in the time stream. So you're telling me that because Barry went back and saved the mom, Jor-El became a conqueror? Those seem like two separate things, and I know I am thinking about this way too much.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense that like, if that's the butterfly effect moment, like, why does that? Especially since when you think about their ages, like, Barry's mom's death had to be not that much. If anything, it was maybe after Clark was launched from Krypton.
Right, because he was a little kid, right?
Which maybe suggests that this idea is actually false, and like we're going to find out that no, the Flashpoint universe is just a separate universe that always existed, and Barry just went to it when he changed things.
That could be too. That would be a nice change, but just trying to think about the original inciting incident, like it makes sense where Thomas becomes Batman because he saw his son die. I mean, that makes sense with the ripple that would have been created. That's up there with Superboy Prime punching reality and creating changes, in Infinite Crisis. But some of these other ones, the Superman one really, really stuck because it's so far away. And, his ship not landing in Smallville, I buy as one of those ripples, but the Jor-El being a conqueror and sending that's too much of a different universe type vibe, But again, I'm just thinking about it probably way too much because it didn't get in the way of me enjoying the rest of the story for as crazy as it's getting. So,
Nah, we might be honest something here. They might reveal that Flashpoint universe isn't exactly what we thought it was. But if it isn't what we thought it was, then it kind of begs the question: then why did it turn into the New 52 at the end when things, like I don't know, very
because
weird.
of Pandora that never ever resolved.
Yes, Pandora and her stupid box. All right, what are you giving Flashpoint Beyond issue 3?
I'm giving this a 7.
Yeah, honestly, so am I. There was enough weird, wacky stuff in it that I'm getting. And Dexter Dent's like my new favorite running gag in comics.
Yeah, right.
So,
I can't wait for him to make his main continuity debut somehow. I
mean, that'd be hard to sort of work. You'd have to find out he had a secret son this whole time.
Yeah. How do we know that Dent didn't have a kid that when he got shipped off to boarding school?
Sure, whatever. Yeah. Dexter Dent, why not? All right. Batman Killing Time issue 5, Tom King writing, David Marquez writing. So I actually really like this issue, and the reason why I'm saying that, because I'm going to start off with a slight critique, which is that I do think, while I understand why it takes 5 pages talking about like this like just gunfighting massacre that happens in the park, I did think it went a little bit too long, to the point where when it got to like the 4th or 5th page, and again, because each page starts with on March 7th at 5:30 something a.m. So each page moves a minute ahead in time.
Yep.
When it got to like the 4th or 5th one, I'm like, all right, I get it. Lots of people die.
I started reading this before bed one night, and I got to about 5 pages, and I go, it felt like I should have been deeper into the comic, and I looked to see how much I had left, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to bed. I'm too tired. Because I had still had like 80% of the book to go, but it had just felt like, because of my brain working on trying to put the minutes all together, and spatially put the scene together, which is really cool. I like the storytelling device of it, but you're right, those first 5 pages drug.
Yeah, they just, it just goes on a bit too long. I don't like some of the moments. I like the bit of speculation at the end that there's someone who they think's a Joker goon who kills like 30 people, but then it notes down that it could have actually just been the real Joker and he was just there for fun and then left. And I was like, I kind of like that. That might have just been the real Joker, but he's not going to get involved.
He sees a melee at a park. Although, did he just hop on one of the buses the Penguin was sending? Because remember, this place is like, what is like 400 miles, 300 miles from.
Yeah, he's hanging around in the Iceberg Lounge when they're all setting this up, and just decides to go for a laugh. Because I think because the one that might be the real Joker is the one that's on the bus when the guy's like cracking his joke, and he's like, "You may want to work on." And I was like, I think they're intentionally saying, it's probably the real Joker who's just having a nice night out, or a nice morning, I should say. But I really like this issue though, because like, as much as I think it goes on a bit too long, that the first 5 pages really does set up this idea of just this gigantic fight with like 2 sides, the authorities and all these henchmen just massacring each other. And then you come to like the page with Riddler and Catwoman, and they've got the family tied up, and they're telling the woman to come, the agent to come with the money, and they'll have their thing. And like, he says something where it's like, oh yeah, we'll meet at the gazebo in the middle of the park, and it'll just be me, the Catwoman, and you, no one else. And it's almost kind of funny because we just saw like dozens and dozens and dozens of people be killed at this time.
The one
tomorrow.
that got me is how the buses show up and how Marquez draws that. With each panel, another bus pulls up. Yeah, and then the 3 of them, and I'm just like, man, Marquez is killing it with the art. Yeah,
it's like 200 people all in that come in these buses, and then you've got all the agents on the other side.
Yep.
The agents are getting no money to pay this ransom, so they, she's like, oh, we need to go in and just take it from him and threaten him. Batman's getting an informant who unfortunately does get killed by one of the gang guys because he's got his phone out. But this sends Batman and the Help on their way there. The agents are on their way there. So what I want to say this does is that it does a great job of setting up this massacre at the start, and then the rest of the issue is all about everything building up to it. So
the lead up to it,
So good sense of momentum. Like once you get past that first chunk, like the momentum and the way it's building up to it, it feels epic. It feels like a big showdown's about to happen, and you kind of can't wait to see it all play out. So it's really good.
It's almost like reverse Reservoir Dogs, where we keep hearing about this thing that had happened, and we never see it. here we lead with it and then we see what led to it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that page with the buses is actually really good. The coloring, especially, just that morning sort of nighttime glow that it's got going.
Color, and then just the pacing. How he manages to do it with still images is really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's when the agent's talking to Riddler and Catwoman in the gazebo where she's got the voice in her ear saying, I think the Batman and another dude just pulled up and they're running in your direction. Also, there's like 3 buses. So it becomes this kind of race to try and make the exchange or whatever. Riddler didn't want to bring the actual item. Turns out Catwoman did though, and doesn't really care about it as much. And they just casually start referring to it as the Eye in this issue, and the flashbacks kind of set up as well. It's the Eye of God. I think because they were hiding it so much in the early issues, I was expecting something we'd recognize that was, it was like related to Batman or Gotham or DC in some way.
No, I just love the idea that it's this mythical item that only has value for what they're putting on it, right? Because we see in other times it was the Eye of Athena, not the Eye of, as it was being told, if I remember right, it was the Eye of Jesus. It was this holy relic. And it causes chaos in every iteration.
Well, there's definitely chaos going on here. Yeah.
Right. But just the idea that this thing is just almost like it doesn't create human nature, it reveals human nature is what I like. Because when you start tying in the ancient Greek aspects and everything else, that's what it seems to be playing at. And it's just this little wooden eye. To me, it looks wooden or stone or whatever. And it's just kind of rolling across this battlefield.
Yeah, there's all this fights going on. And it's right here where so we've had this narrator since the start of issue 1 talking about 5:57 this happens, across town at 6:22 this happens. And I'm actually annoyed that none of us actually guessed who this was.
Me neither, because it felt like an omniscient narrator, just like if there was no narrator ever revealed.
Like it was just like it didn't feel like it was wanting us to guess that it was important who was speaking. It just felt like like you say, like a narrator who wasn't important. But then here towards the end, as the eyeball rolls out the case and it rolls down the grass into defeat, we hear someone say, are we to not lifted to the heavens by the king of clocks? And then the last page is the full page spread. It's the clock king holding this eyeball. It's been him all along. And all of a sudden you're like, this is why the whole book's been like all these specific times and talking about the precise moments everything's happening around town and all the rest of it. It's all him building up to getting his eyeball that he wants.
That might be my second favorite Tom King Batman reveal after the Kite Man kites in War of Jokes and Riddle. Because when they all go off the windows and then they pull up and they say, hell yeah, that's so good. This one with the, basically the all hell the king of clocks, and it's him standing there with his stupid clock glasses. I was like, son of a bitch. He got me.
Yeah, he's in the middle of the battlefield. Everyone's killing each other around him, and he's just standing there, looking at his eyeball. He's he's delighted with himself. I think this story, even though he's not been revealed till this penultimate issue at the end, depending on how they stick the landing with the last issue, it does kind of feel like it's elevating Clock King a little bit. This makes him feel like he's really smart, and he's played all these various big villains of Gotham against each other, and so.
We think about how a clock works. It's all these independent gears that work together for a greater goal. And that's what all of these characters have been doing, right?
And if you talk about the eye saying it causes chaos, Clock King's the opposite of that. He's all about order. Right? It's all about time. It's all about things being accurate and so. Right.
And so
it's an interesting the way juxtaposition.
He's done it. Yeah. Well, it's also like in The Dark Knight where the Joker talks about how much, he doesn't plan things, yet you look at what he does and everything's an intricate plan, and that's just the smoke screen to everything. So it reminded me of that through this too. So
yeah, art's good throughout. Obviously, we mentioned the bus panel page because we really like that one, but yeah, all the stuff with the murders at the start as they're killing each other is very good. Like it, as much as it maybe goes a couple of pages too long, it is very good.
Now the main agent is the one, Agent F Word, as she was called, because she has all the bleeps. She's the one that gets kicked to death, right? Like 200 and something times. Is that Espinosa?
That's her name. Honestly, I
Yeah.
kind of missed that. I
Okay.
remember someone getting kicked to death.
Yeah, there's a part where it says, Agent Espinosa, I think it was, gets, kicked 200 and something times. See if we can pull that up.
No, that's not her. That's
Okay.
Agent Lynn Barton. Yeah, it's a different character.
There we go. So I was like, I kind of like this one agent. I hope she makes the jump.
No,
I can see more of her.
Yeah, I think she'll be in the final issue. I don't think she's dead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even if she jumps from this to modern, Batman continuity, I always like these agents that take nothing from superheroes. Like she doesn't seem to care. She's a little bit too cocky, and that's her downfall here. But the fact that she's not afraid to go toe to toe with Riddler and Catwoman, I really like that.
Yeah. And the thing about that opening section as well is that I do like that it's giving you this little bit of history and who all these hench people are and like what their life is like. Are they leaving loved ones behind as they die? It just does it for too many pages. But if you put it down to like 2 or 3 pages, I would probably quite like it. At the very least, I do think it does enhance the rest of the issue in the sense that it does feel like this big, huge, epic fight that's going to happen, and it's all building to it. So. There's kind of a monkey's paw thing. I still think you'd have gotten that effect if it was just 3 pages as opposed to 5. But
yeah.
There you go. That about does it. All right. We'll see how things wrap up next issue, and if the narration changes because Clock King's now revealed himself. I'd be curious to see if they play with that mechanically as a writing device. But
or if it switches, to like 20 minutes from now, to where it plays into the future.
It's already done that, isn't it?
Has it?
Yeah, I seem to remember back in the first issue where it was kind of bouncing back and forward all the time, so it was constantly doing, 10 minutes from now or things like that.
Okay. Well, maybe, I don't know. Let's see where it goes. Or if it's all just in the present tense and reads like a normal comic, that'd be kind of disappointing.
I could see it working into it differently than it has done up until now because it's now he's revealed and now it's kind of all out in the open. So it was a cool reveal though. I wasn't expecting such a cool reveal at the end of the issue. So
God, and he looks downright sinister too on that battlefield, picking up the eye. Yeah,
I think the trick of it is that the narration never made me think it was a character. I never felt that. So it wasn't until that second last page where he started referring to himself as something. I went, wait a minute, who are you? Yeah. And then the final page hits and it's like, oh, that was a good reveal. Very nice. What are you giving Killing Time?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
I'm also going to give it an 8. I would maybe even go a little higher if it wasn't just for that first part being a little too stretched out. But other than that, I really like this issue. So Killing Times were pretty good by and large, I have to say. So we'll see the final issue next month and see how it wraps up. All right. Poison Ivy issue 2, WIllow Wilson writing, Marcio Takara on the art. Matt, this is one you read, so take it away.
Yeah, funnily enough, we were talking about stories that don't progress the plot very much and meet some character, and that's what this issue is. So WIllow Wilson, Marcio Takara, and it's Pam stops at this diner because if you remember, I don't know how much you remember because you kind of got up and left me to talk about Ivy, but she has this plan where she's going to dose the majority of the United States with this this fungus that kills them and turns them into spread to kind of give the green a fighting chance against humans. But she stops at this diner and it's in Montana, and it's kind of like this place for wayward souls. And there's this chef that seems like he's maybe of Middle Eastern descent, just kind of out of place, and he's cooking these different foods. And Pam's sitting there just taking in everything, and you can tell she's like uncomfortable, and you find out that she has already sent these spores out and she's trying to control them to get an even distribution across this diner. And then this dark-haired lady sits across from her, and we find out that she's a poet and that she's making her way across the United States, and it starts to make Pam realize oh, well, maybe there are some humans that are worth saving. And then that makes her think of Harley, because the book opens up with this page of her and Harley, laying together in a spoon position, and Pam talking about how much you mean to me, but we don't know if she's meaning Harley or a plant or whatever. It's just this kind of dialogue. And then the police bust in the diner, and Pam's not having a good time because she's trying to control all these spores. And this Jenny girl turns out that she's not just a poet, because poetry doesn't pay, as she was telling Pam. She ran a wire fraud scam at a library, and she's on the run. And this again makes her think of Harley, and like, is she doing the right thing? Of keeping this plan in, and it's not too late for her to stop. But we get a flashback of her with the gardener in Gotham, and the gardener tells her, you're too far gone. You'll never be Queen Ivy again. That was a one-time deal. And she gets mad that basically they made her become this human version of herself again. And that she realizes that she'll never be in touch with that green again. And what she felt in the green shows at her mission, that the funny thing is with humans is like, as much as that she can love them, that they are also the problem that's killing the green. And so what side does she side on? So it plays up with more of that. We also get her talking about, when people ask her if she's a vegetarian, and she goes into this whole, diatribe of, do you know how much death is involved in farming vegetarian and vegan? She brings up agave. So when you get agave nectar, the stuff that they do to the plants to create that causes, the species of bat, which I thought was funny that it ended up being bats. They don't flower because they don't need the flower when they make the agave nectar. And then it kills off the bats. And with that, it creates a monoculture that are, susceptible to blight. And this is all because of mankind's doing. So she goes, yeah, no. So you can say that, I'm a bit of a carnivore. And it kind of just plays into the idea of carnivorous plants setting traps. And it's kind of what she's doing. But so she goes to get into the van, and the people that she had first turned into these fungus, she looks like, maybe it was moving. So maybe they're not fully dead. Maybe this is the fungus also interacting with her. And yeah, so she gets back into her van and goes off, and she starts talking about Harley again, and she curses the time that, she carried her cross country basically in a vase to unite her with the Queen Ivy. And that's where we left off, that she's going on. But yeah, it was a lot of getting into Pam's head, and if she is a hero, if she is a villain, she's still kind of on the villainous side, but she also seems to have hope for certain humans. There are people that she does like the cut of the jib, and that could, that aren't the problem, and that could, not necessarily help her in her mission, but maybe sidetrack her mission of releasing this fungus across the country. She also has a moment where she thinks that, Batman's following her, and she almost has like a panic episode. And she's like, well, he's not going to be all the way out here in Montana. So maybe that's foreshadowing for later. The Takara art is fantastic. The way that he draws Pam here, she's in like the work suit, and she tells Jenny that she's in landscaping, versus how he draws her as just the regular Poison Ivy and the glimpses of Queen Ivy. It almost feels like they're different characters, and each one's distinct. So I like that a whole lot, because again, it gives us another piece of her personality at play. And then just some of the deaths that she gets, like she kills one of the guys in the diners with a spore, and it just tears his body apart from the inside. And it's super, super gruesome, but also not really bloody. So I'm really enjoying this book. And people, if you're not reading it, get caught up, because I feel like this might be the definitive Ivy story when it's all said and done, which when I think about, there's not too many. So, but yeah, 8.5.
All right. Was that last part directed at me?
No, not you, but other people that aren't reading it, because it's only 15 on the Comixology list. So yeah, y'all should be reading this.
Yeah. Ivy's got a hardcore fan base, and they will buy everything that ever comes out with Ivy on it. But
was that directed at me?
Yes.
Yeah, so far it's been this through 2 issues. If this sticks to landing, it's been this in Cycle of Life and Death, or two the strongest, like to get to the Pam Isley of it, not so much the Poison Ivy, which is good, because she needs that kind of character. Because I feel like people write her as the eco-terrorist way too easily. And so, like, I like how Wilson got into her being a vegetarian and what that means, and what that means for the greater scheme of the world. But yeah.
All right. We shall move on. DC versus Vampires, issue 7, James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg writing with Otto Schmidt on the art. So this we had that dodgy one shot which I wasn't super into, but this is mostly back on form, I would say. We start with a bit of a recap of just sort of explaining that the world's now, plunged into darkness and Dick's in charge in Gotham. No one can get in or out of Gotham, or with one notable exception that gets brought up at the end. And the issue starts with actually, before we even go into where the plot goes, while they're recapping things, they just casually mention Superboy get ripped in half. So Connor Kent got ripped in half by Wonder Woman and Shazam. So just I thought I'd mention that.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's sad. And Superman's been turned, and I don't like that at all.
Of course you don't. Why would you like that?
No.
So basically, the big stars, Director Bones is with a bunch of C-listers who are transporting someone important in a car.
Adam Strange is not a C-lister. How dare you?
Okay, B and C-listers.
Okay, there you go. That's better.
I'm not putting Wild Dog in B-list territory though.
No.
All right, just make that clear.
Shouldn't. Well, let's be real. These guys are red shirts. Like,
oh yeah,
we know
they all die. They all get, Negative Man's there, and I love Negative Man, but Peacemaker's there. But Vampire Plastic Man shows up and starts
creepy.
Yeah, starts biting them as a big long snake.
Not since the plastic Nazis in the Uncle Sam book and the Freedom Fighters has Plastic Man been creepy. So yeah, good luck. Schmidt really killed it with that one.
Yeah, Raven's did a pretty good job holding them off, but then gets bit by Plastic Man, so she's down. Yeah. And then, lo and behold, this was kind of a nice callback, actually, is that the person who comes in and kind of knocks them all down, at least briefly, is Jaina from the Wonder Twins, who, of course, this book started, the first victim, or one of the first victims was her brother. So the idea that she's become kind of this badass wanderer in this vampire wasteland is kind of interesting. And she drives what's left of Bones, which is just the head and like a bit of spine. And he's dying. He dies by the time they get there, but basically they're on their way to some secret city, some secret haven where people are safe from vampires.
Calling it Nightlight, which I really like. Yeah, it's the hope in the darkness.
Yeah, she doesn't believe it really exists, but she gets there and it's just this filthy swamp full of trash, and Killer Croc comes out and is like, "What's the password?" And she's like, "Password? I don't know a password. Bones just died in this seat." But then the Atom comes out, Ryan Choi, and he's like, "Jaina, oh yeah, like, is she there? Is she safe?" And she's like, "What?" And turns out Supergirl was in the back of the car the whole time hiding. And at first she's pissed because, like, why didn't Supergirl help fight? And Croc, it's actually Croc who's like, "Idiot, there's no sun." Right?
Yeah. So without the sun, Supergirl is just girl.
Yeah. Vampire Superman's doing alright because he's got vampire powers. But although he's still flying, I noticed in some of the panels, so I don't know how the logic of that's working. But
me neither.
Regardless, fair enough. Supergirl's weak right now because no powers. And they go into the swamp, and you're like, wait, what's happening here? And then it turns out that Ryan Choi is using his powers, his atom powers and technology, to shrink people down, and they're all hiding in the bottled the bottled city of Kandor. Which is this is the sort of thing DCeased did a lot of, which was like using parts of DC mythology to just
inform the story.
Yeah, just inventive ways, using like ideas. Green Arrow's down there, Babs is in there. They're all quite sad about the state of the world, what's going on. And the back chunk of the issue is effectively them disagreeing on what they should do next. And the multiple plans that are kind of going to play here is that Babs wants to go to Gotham and kill Dick Grayson. To end this. Supergirl wants someone to take her to Australia because in Australia they can launch out of space, and they've got Black Manta there, so sailing the high seas isn't going to be too difficult for him.
Right.
But the idea being is if they can get her into space, she can recharge from the sun, and then she can like remove the blocking like dust cloud or whatever they've got in the sky to block out the sun. And that would, give them a fighting chance against the vampires. Yep. Not just because she'd have her powers again, but also because they're vampires and the sun's kind of their enemy.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, very neat. And then on top of that, Oliver wants to go to Smallville because that's where a bunch of people are being kidnapped and kept in cages. Which obviously, very noble. But as they point out, like, we can save some people from cages, or we can take down the entire vampire empire. Like, one seems more important than the other.
it's very Oliver trying to control what he can control, right?
Yeah.
It rang very true to me that he would want to go save all those people because it's smaller.
So
right?
we're setting up 3 things that are going to concurrently happen, and the cliffhanger we end on is that Babs wants to go into Gotham to kill Dick Grayson. Everyone's like, look, no one's been in or out of Gotham in months. And then Constantine says, nah, that's not entirely true. There's one person who got out, although she's with some really bad people right now. And that ties into the one shot, which is Harley Quinn is the one person who's managed to get out of Gotham. But right now, there's a team of villains, including Professor Pig, the Thinker, and Hugo Strange, who have got her like tied up, and like they've got like tubes of different chemicals getting into her, and she's got like a mouth gape thing on, like, and she's like threatening to kill them all because they're, well, it's not very pleasant, naturally.
No.
So presumably they're going to come and try to get Harley to find out how she snuck out of the city so they can sneak in.
Yeah. 2 things I like too. Babs saying that they have to kill Dick. I did like that. Like
it's got weight behind it.
Yeah, she's the one that wants to do it too. So, Jaina, it looked like she took the form of water, right? That's her brother's thing. So when she appears, it's almost like as an ice form or a water form, which I thought was interesting. Because I had to double check that, Zan took the form of water and she took the form of animals. So I did the power of the Wonder Twin just jump to her when he died, or what? I don't know.
That's possible. Where is this when she was water?
In the when she shows up right behind I think Firestorm. Yeah, when she first shows up, it's like she materializes.
I'm on that page. I'm not seeing what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
She's just standing behind him holding a sword.
Is that what it is? I could have sworn maybe it's when he explodes.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, it's after he explodes. That's how she survives the explosion, because she turns into just some water and then reforms. You're right. Yeah. Okay,
so there it was. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, and that the fact that when Constantine is like, Bones died, anything, he should have survived anything short of a atomic blast, and they're just like, yeah, about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was an atomic blast.
It was an atomic blast, and I liked that, because I was trying to figure out how Bones was still talking through that, and I was like, oh, of course, magic.
Presumably all the villains that have got Harley are trying to do something with their blood because she injected the Lex Luthor blood into her.
Yeah, because they're very much, I don't think that they're vampires. They're not giving up vampire vibes.
No. But I do wonder what the other characters are going to think of that once they find out she's got this, magic blood in her system, and see what they make of it. Because is there a chance they can actually revert back the vampires into humans?
We'll figure it out. I'm not sure.
Because that would it'd be very traumatic for them to suddenly care again about everything they've done whilst they were vampires.
Right.
It'd be a very dark ending if they went that route.
It's a very Angelus thing, right?
Yeah, it does feel like they set up like 3 big plots here that we're probably going to be doing for the next few issues. So it's got direction, which is quite nice.
Well, plus that mini series that we're getting.
Yeah.
It's coming. So.
Yeah. Unless one of these plots is that miniseries. I don't remember the description of that, but
I don't either.
It could be.
Yeah. That could be the one. That's why the Harley story was. Although setting that up here would be a little bit weird. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I feel like after Dick will be in the main book because he's the main vampire. I feel like that's definitely the case. But and Oliver's been a main character in the book, so it'd feel weird to separate his story off into a mini. I don't know. I honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think all 3 of these stories will be in the main book, and then the mini will be something else. But
mini could just be anthology style, where we're just getting different stories of different characters. So.
Yeah, obviously, Otto Schmidt's art's very good. The fight with all the C and B lists at the start, ending with the firestorm explosion, is really good stuff. I obviously enjoyed the candor reveal, and I think this was an inventive way to keep it going. It's kind of a reset for the book, because obviously issue 6 was this big climax that revealed who the villain was and set up kind of where it's going to be going from here. This was very much, okay, this is the start of Act 2, if you want to call it that, which, the second half. So I thought they did a good job of establishing all that stuff. And kind of like, okay, here's the characters that we've still got on the good guys' side and what they're trying to do. I think Babs is going to die, but take out Dick with her.
Yeah.
That I feel like there's going to be a tragic double death there, which is
the ultimate sacrifice. Or she gets bit and does the "you have to kill me" type thing before I turn. You know. But yeah, I hope not. Man, one of my favorite characters dying in this.
Well, that's a good thing about being an Elseworld, is it doesn't matter. It's
True.
Okay.
Doesn't make the feelings hurt any less. You know?
Yeah, Cutter Ken got ripped in half.
Yeah. Oh.
Spine dangling out and innards all just dripping onto the floor.
Yep.
Oh, maybe? Aye, okay. All right. What are you giving DC versus Vampires issue 7?
I'm gonna go 7.5.
No, I'm going with an 8 in this one. I had a good time. It felt concise, it felt focused, it set up a lot of things for the upcoming issues. And I'm glad characters like Babs and Supergirl and Dinah are getting to take a bit of the spotlight in this one. So that's cool. All right. Well, one of the things you could do over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, one of the higher tiers, is make myself a corner read a book. So this is my 2 for June. I'm a little late on these, but these are my 2 June books. So this is going to be American Vampire, issue 27 I'm starting with. So keeping the subject on vampires, as we were just talking about. So this is the second half of a 2-part story. This is the black vampire. Well, I don't know if I knew he was a vampire in the first issue. That may have been revealed in this issue, but he's working for the vassals and he's there, and we think these young guys are racist, but it's actually the old guys that are racist. And what this issue actually does is that when he describes these vampires, because he gets away at the start because the young guy who we thought was a racist in the first issue like drives up in a car and like sort of saves him. He describes him when he calls Hobbs, because Hobbs is doing like surgery, like he's doing like exploratory surgery on like some sort of vampire species in front of a gallery of like vassals med students. But he takes this call and he's talking to him, and he describes these vampires as being almost werewolf-like because they've got fur. And then they casually mentioned there was another vampire species that he encountered not too long ago that were dumb and didn't have fangs, and he referred to them as zombies. So it sets up the idea that in this universe, werewolves and zombies are just offshoot species of vampire of some kind. That's a megaton as far as mythology goes. That's quite interesting.
I remember reading that the first time and thinking like that's a brilliant piece for this, because also in the Survival of the Fittest mini, there's statues of like werewolves and stuff in that castle. And so when you tie it back to that, I was like, oh yeah, okay, so there's Carpathian, like there's different breeds of vampire, but then even there's different sub-breeds.
And plus, you know, right from the start of the book, one of the rules for the American vampire was the moon affected them. Right. Not exactly the same way as a werewolf, but the idea that the moon even affects them is kind of a subtle tease that, yeah, the werewolves are kind of an offshoot of vampires in some way.
Right.
And they are all versions of undead. They all get bit to be turned. You know, there's definitely parallels you can draw between them. You get a little bit of backstory with Cal, who's the main character in the story. How he came home to find his wife like having lots of little vampire bites all over her body, and she's like butt ass naked in the garden, and it's kind of this dark, like tragic backstory for him and how he got into this. He wakes up in like a coffin and says, "Why the hell am I in a coffin?" As like, we thought you'd heal better in there, and he's like, "Nah, that's just a movie thing." So there's some little jokes here or there as well. But we find out that basically, because these werewolf vampires, these old guys who are kind of in a pack, they mostly just kill black people, and because of that, all of the bodies come to this what do you call it? This mortician, like like it's a separate mortician because of the time period, right? So they all go to this one cemetery, and because of that, like. This kid who used to get up to no good and we'd come out of this neighborhood when he was younger, they kind of learned about these vampires and learned what they were doing, and he's actually working with the mortician here to try and fight back, and they've been collecting silver because, you know, as per usual werewolf rules, their weakness is silver. So like, yeah, we've been collecting silver stuff. He shows Cal their stash, and it's like, okay, we have to try and fight them. So It's really good stuff. So they go to where they usually hang out, which is this VA home. The assumption is they get bit by this species when they were serving overseas. So Cal comes in, he goes toe to toe, he bites them. He's almost going to get nabbed at one point by the leader, but then the young guy shows up and kills him. Shoots him in the head with a silver bullet. And the issue ends with Cal. Well, other than the cliffhanger, but it ends with Cal watching his brother and his band or his quartet play on the stage. So it ends with kind of this happy feeling. At the end of the issue, though, he gets a phone call from Pearl saying that Henry's died, and that's kind of, so it ties it back in. So this is someone that Pearl knows through the vassals, and it's going to lead into the next story, which is cool. I love the mythology stuff it added here. I love the swerve of like who the bad guys actually were. All of that's really good. I talked about that in the last issue, that you think these young guys are being racist, but it turns out they were actually genuinely trying to warn them that something was going to happen. The one critique I would have is I feel like it wraps up in 2 issues when it probably could have had 3. Like the actual resolution where they go and take out the old werewolf vampire dudes, it happens in like 3 pages. Like, it's so quick. Like I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's more like 4 or 5, but they it's like, hey, they hang out at this place. So we cut to this VA house, and then it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's over, and that's it. That's the entire showdown. And I kind of felt like you could have done a whole issue building up to them sneaking up to this house, forming a plan, really setting up how dangerous it was, and struggling to fight these like 3 werewolves. Like you could have made a whole issue out of that, and it would have felt quite a big deal. Instead, it feels like just truncated and like squished on to like the end of an issue that was mostly just the cool mythology setup, and then the little tease at the end for where we're going next. I could have done with this being fleshed out into another issue, and I think it would have been even better if they'd done that. So the actual showdown with the werewolves just feels really rushed. So I would critique it and maybe only give it like a 7 because of that. But I do love the mythology stuff it sets up. And by bringing in werewolves and zombies into kind of connecting them. I also just love the absurdity of Hobbs like casually taking this phone call. And this is not like he's got like a little smartphone that he's got. This is like the old school like rotary phone that he's got under his ear as he's like showing a bunch of med students, and this is how the vampire species blah 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 works, and here's how their organs have been manipulated by the vampire virus.
Look at their teeth.
So I do appreciate the absurdity. It's got that dark sense of humor that I really like, kind of still an American vampire. I do like that this 2-parter gave us this viewpoint of a completely different type of character, this character of color in this very racist time period, and just the differences that comes up because of that. But I do think the showdown with the werewolves is a bit rushed, so because of that I'm going to say it's not quite great and is only good, and give it a 7. But that's American Vampire issue 27. My other Patriot book that I'm talking about is Animal Man issue 21. So if you remember, Ellen and the kids got killed at the end of not the last issue, but the previous issue. The last issue was this depressing issue of Buddy just being lost, feeling despair, and possibly killing himself by the end, until he got a phone call from Mirror Master, revealing possibly who the killer is, Lennox. And the issue starts with him saying that he has to be an animal, he has to call on the power of the animals, he has to stop thinking and be an animal himself to go do what he's got to do. And he's in his outfit, his old outfit, and he basically starts using his sense of smell once Mirror Master's explained that it's this guy named Lennox. He's working for people who are basically part of like the animal industry, and they don't like that he's an activist, like, tackling these subjects and trying to like raise awareness about the cruelty to animals and things like fossil fuels and stuff like that. So a lot of the social topics and political topics are obviously at the forefront here, but this is why they're becoming, and that's the thing, that the run has been neatly doing that. Animal Man has been going and stopping this like dolphin hunting season in one issue. He stopped this other thing in another issue. He's been this activist. This is what's made them want to do this. These shadowy figures that hired Lennox to go do this was them. They actually wanted Mirror Master to do it. The Mirror Master came to scare them because at his behest, but then Mirror Master turned down when they said, no, kill the wife and kids. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. Mirror Master, for all his shittiness, has got a line. So Animal Man uses his powers to get his increased sense of smell from, I think, did he say a moth? I want to say, because it's even better than a dog. But he smells like he basically sort of relives the crime scene and says, "Oh, he came to the door. Ellen was here. I can smell her perfume. She turned away, but then he snuck in. The phone rang, and he, shot Ellen in the back and then killed the kids." And he describes it in detail, so it's really horrific for him to sort of live through this. But he goes with Mirror Master to some of these rich guys. One's on a yacht, and he gets pulled underwater, and it's really dark. Animal Man just holds him underwater until he dies, because Animal Man's got fish powers, so he's just like swimming happily.
Damn.
And he just holds him until he stops moving, and it's really dark. It's really sinister. But obviously you're kind of rooting for him because you understand why he's doing it. But he's in a bad place. The second guy we see in like a motel, he's not killed here yet. There's one guy playing golf who's literally talking about, what was he talking about? It was Reagan who said 80% of pollution is actually caused by trees. What? This sounds like something that he probably did say. This was probably some bullshit like statement that was made at some point.
I'm gonna look.
Anyway, he's like, I love trees as much as the next people, but people have got to eat. That grazing land has to be cleared. So it's like, oh god, this was just as big a thing as in the end of the 80s as it is now, and like all the bullshit arguments you get. But yeah, so it's this rich guy who's profiting from all this. He gets pulled into the golf hole after he puts his ball, and he's just pulled into the darkness. Presumably Animal Man's got like mole powers or something right now. But he just holds him underground until he dies. He effectively buries him alive by pulling him underground and just closing the hole. And then he goes to the headquarters and goes after the remaining people. Lennox goes into the stupid bug robot thing they've got, the Red 209 looking mech suit. They go into the building. The fat guy, one of the other rich guys, is in the toilet. He comes out and Animal Man's there waiting for him, and he runs out. Animal Man chases him down in the hallway, and Mirror Master makes sure he gets paid first by making him like write him a check, but also give some money to charities to Greenpeace. But then the mech suit shows up, and Mirror Master just flashes it with his light gun or his mirror gun, and it kind of like destabilizes it for a bit. And the rich guy runs to the sort of the outside elevator, and Buddy just gets to him in time and punches him so hard that the elevator goes off the side of the building and plummets. So this is an issue where a hero hunts down and murders 3 people. Well, 4 actually. Actually, there's a 4th. I'm getting to the 4th in a second. Because he's after Lennox next, and Lennox is the one in the bug suit. And he tries to use the flamethrower on the mech suit. He tries to shoot at him, but ultimately it doesn't work. He uses obviously more animal powers. He uses the electric power of Vanille to stop the suit from working. He cuts off the arm. He breaks the arm, and Lennox just, as he's like beaten up and the helmet opens, like, you people with powers, it's not fair. You shouldn't fight ordinary people with superpowers. He's like, you're worse than I ever was. And then Animal Man puts on almost like a Freddy Krueger type glove. He's like, I need to be an animal. And then it just like, you get a panel of like the patriotic symbol on the wall as he's presumably just killing this guy, killing Lennox. And when Mirror Master comes in, there's literally just like body parts and like blood on the floor. And Animal Man is just like sitting down, hinged, in a sort of fetal style position. He's just distraught. He's like in shock. He's like, he feels nothing. He's killed 4 people. It's not really fixed anything, but it's all been this revenge thing. And it just ends with him saying, I can fix it with a time machine. I need a time machine. I can fix everything. And that's the end of the issue. So I think this actually links back. So there was an issue where a figure was standing outside the house, like, I don't know, like 6 issues ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and this is partly because the front cover of the next issue kind of gives it away, but I think this is Animal Man going back in time to In fact, they may have revealed it was Animal Man at the time. I can't remember now. It's been a number of issues. They may have revealed that it was Animal Man at the time, but I think it's specifically this Animal Man after he's done all this, after the death of his family, that he wants to try and fix it all by going back in time. So I will say this: the story is riveting at this point. Like the the family being killed, his depression after it, and then him going on this bloody rampage of revenge and killing them all, has all been really fascinating to read, and just like his mental state, him dealing with it, the idea that he's this, like he's been this activist who doesn't want to hurt animals, but now he's like murdering people left and right because this is what the shock of this, this one bad day, it's turned him into this.
He's fully team animal, not team people.
You can look at it that way, yeah.
So I looked up that thing about Reagan, and that was a talking point because he misunderstood what his aides are telling him, is that they were trying to limit hydrocarbons, which trees do emit, but unless they have something to react with, they're not problematic. Like, they don't add to stuff. It's just a natural reaction of trees generating energy. However, they did not go out of their way to limit nitrogen oxides, which is the stuff when gas and coal are burned. So that's where he had said that trees cause more, because they weren't looking at those levels because they didn't want to be wrong. So it was something, he didn't say that exactly, but of course, politics being what it is,
of course.
They took the quote and ran with it. So, and it doesn't surprise me someone like Grant Morrison, especially in the 80s, would throw that into a comic.
Oh yeah, nah, it felt like a real thing when I read it.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've got all those ideas there. The idea that they've made him less human by turning him into this, by doing these awful tactics to protect their pocketbooks, like, so the cynicism's there, the political commentary's there, but ultimately it's this really sort of human story about this man losing everything and going to this like really dark place. So I'm really excited to see him try and travel back through time and fix it somehow, and warn his younger self. I'd be very curious to see. Although, given that it already happened, so if I'm right about like this tying into that, and it didn't seem to fix anything, does paint an ominous picture. But I'm still feeling confident because I'm sure the kids and Ellen will be back. But it's still dark. Even to do this for a few issues, it's still a very dark thing.
Yeah, well, because it's at the time, right? You don't have the context. So if you're reading this issue by issue, his family's dead, and to do that in a mainstream superhero comic in the 80s, yeah, man, that's wild.
Yep. So yeah, that will take us out of the part of the show. Oh, I didn't read it, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like a 9, maybe even a 9.5. It's a 9. I'll go 9. 9 out of 10 for Animal Man 21. So there you go. That'll take us out of the part of the show. We pick our favourite stuff of the week, favourite panel/moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and top 5 books. Matt, what you got for panel/moment?
I'm gonna take it from, there's stuff in Ivy that I could pick, right? Or even in Vampires. But I'm gonna take in Dark Crisis when Slade picks up the sticks to fight Nightwing, and they have the face off. It's just such for the history of those characters and this happening in a crisis, it's such a big deal.
Yeah, I think I have to go with the ending of Killing Time. That reveal, I think, just works so well. So I'm going with the big reveal at the end of Killing Time. Cover of the week. As per usual, there's a few options. There's actually 2 Mattina covers to pick from this week as well. There's one for Batman with Catwoman up on a roof with some cats. And there's also one for DC vs. Vampires with Harley. They're both good. I'm not picking either of them. There's also a Ben Oliver cover for Killing Time of Penguin, which is pretty neat. But my pick is actually just the regular cover for Dark Crisis, which is the Titans Tower with like the fight in front of it, and it's just got that blinding light. It's just a really simple, effective, epic looking cover. So it's befitting of a grand event. So I'm going to go with Dark Crisis main cover. What are you picking?
It's gonna be from Poison Ivy, and there's a bunch to pick from.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that there's sexy variants for Poison Ivy.
And it's not just a sexy variant. It's the Christian Ward Poison Ivy variant. It's very what's the word? I don't want to say pulpy because I say pulpy too much, but it's Ivy in a traditional costume, and just the way that it plays with the greens and the colors, and And look, she's in a field of fly traps, and yeah, just from reading that Aquaman book with Ward on the art, the fact that I got this cover. This is the cover I picked up physically as well. But some of the other covers this week, because there was just a whole bunch for Ivy. There was a Alvaro Martinez Bueno cardstock variant. That was 1 in 25. One of the reasons I didn't pick that one up is because I didn't want to spend that much more cover. And then, of course, a Jenny Frisian cover that's just fantastic. So, yeah.
All right. Art of the week, what you got?
Okay, so we have a lot of leaders in this one. Sampere for Dark Crisis, fantastic. Takara and Ivy, really good. But I think I'm going to give it to Marquez for Killing Time. Just the way that the pacing told through comic panels, and they seem to be in motion. The fact that you never really get lost in that scene, it just goes on for a little bit too long. Just with the chaos. A whole other level than some of the other stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah, Marquez is great in Killing Time. I think I have to just edge out to Jimenez for Batman, though.
Okay.
I'm thinking some of that stuff with Batman Get Out of the Shadows, some of the stuff with Clayface covering everyone. There's a lot of good stuff. Admittedly, I know it probably sounds like a bit of a weird choice given that I don't like the design of the robot at the end, but I'm not necessarily putting that down to poor art. It's poor design. For my taste, anyway. Obviously, it's kind of subjective.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I'd probably still pick that, even though I do think Jimenez, Marquez, and Sampere are all relatively close on this. What's weird is that Mikel, Janin, and Xermanico are both on Flashpoint Beyond, but it's neither one of their best work, if that makes sense. It's just kind of
it does.
They're going through the motions a little bit, and Schmidt's obviously solid on DC versus Vampires as well. But yeah, so yeah, a lot of solid art this week, I'd say. A lot of solid art. All right, top 5 books, Matt. What you got?
All right, so number 1's going to be Dark Crisis. 2 is Ivy. 3 is Killing Time. 4 is Batman, and 5 is DC v Vampires.
Okay, I think I'm going to go number 1, Killing Time. Number 2, DC versus Vampires. Number 3, Dark Crisis. Number 4, Batman. And number 5, Flashpoint Beyond. Although I'm oddly getting into that book now, bizarrely. But
yeah, I mean, it did. It at first we were kind of like, oh, this is crazy because the way that they killed Barry was very funny. But yeah, it's actually turned into an actual decent story.
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's good yet, but I'm certainly having some entertainment from it.
So I said decent. Like, we were there to watch it like we watched The Room, right?
Yes.
Like, we're kind of like, oh, where's this going? And then it's like, oh, it's actually making, some cogent points.
Yeah, well, that'll take me on to telling you what's coming out next week from DC Comics. So coming next week, we have Wonder Woman 789, Superman Son of Kal-El issue 13, Batman Urban Legends issue 17, Batgirls issue 8, Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League Superman issue 1, so that's the first of these one-shots we're going to get once a month that relate to Dark Crisis. I Am Batman issue 11, Future State Gotham 15, Rogues issue 3 is coming out, so that's exciting to see. That's 3 of 4, so that's not the last issue, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then we got Naomi season 2 issue 5, and also Wonder Woman Evolution issue 8. So that's the DC books that are out next week. Kind of a weird hodgepodge of a week. I think week 2 has felt that way for a while, but some interesting stuff in there.
So the Dark Crisis World Without a Justice League is Tom King and Brandon Thomas with Chris Burnham on art. So I will be checking that one out. I don't know if you are too, Pete.
I presume I will be, yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I got 6 books next week. It's a normal amount.
Normal size. Really excited for Rogues, though. That's the one that I'm excited for.
I'm excited for. I mean, I've enjoyed Rogues so far. If anything, it's maybe just a shame that it's maybe been slightly overshadowed by Aquaman Andromeda and the Lemire Swamp Thing book.
Just a little.
Which has only had 1 issue so far, but it was great.
Yeah, well, say with the Aquaman one.
Yeah.
So,
It was great. So, But there you go. That is what's coming next week from DC Comics. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman, and Alison M. Fordyce. You can, of course, support us for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help the podcast and support it and keep it coming, as well as supporting other content that we do at MailFuzz. MailFuzz Movies and MailFuzz TV are two other YouTube channels that are full of reviews that I do, sometimes with other people, sometimes on my own. Go check out those. If you like horror or sci-fi movies, MailFuzz Movies is probably a pretty good place to go and hear some more rambles. They're also available in podcast feeds, though. Those podcasts are on that channel, though, so you can find them on there too. But yeah, go have a look-see. Otherwise, get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, and like, subscribe, ding the bell, rate us 5 stars on iTunes, all that stuff, all the usual things you hear. But that is the show. And once again, Connor should be back next week. He has our recording day off from work, and he'll be catching up on some Patreon books, and I'm sure he'll tell us about how he broke his arm again or something. I don't know. For the record, I don't think he has. But hey, there's a whole week to go yet. It may still happen.
Yeah. Put your thoughts and prayers in.
Let's will it into existence, people. Let's have him back away scared from a poodle. And
I love how that story went from he got attacked by a dog to the dog knocked him off a curb because it scared him.
Yeah, because like he phrased it as attack, but then when he actually described how it happened, I'm like, well, that wasn't an attack. He just kind of came over to you.
No, I get being scared when a dog rushes you, because if the dog's big enough, it's kind of scary. But yeah, him falling off the curb, putting his hand out, breaking it was not. I imagined that he had puncture wounds in his arm from the dog biting him.
I know. It's
Cujo
not
style.
Matt, it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the ginger on the road.
That's right. Imagine a big old Rottweiler. Probably something the size of one of mine.
Yeah,
I have small dogs.
Little terrier, little poodle, something that even if it wanted to kill you, couldn't get close.
Oh man, the only dog I've ever been bit by was my Chihuahua, and she got me on the nose as I was saying goodbye in the morning, and that hurt. So they do hurt when it connects, but not enough to knock me off of a curb.
I've been bitten by all 3 of my cats, but cats don't bite as hard as dogs, so it's okay.
My cat play bites me, and it drives me nuts. Because you'll just be sitting there petting them, and then all of a sudden they say do the rabbit kicks and bite, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? What did I do, psycho?
Just playing. That's all.
Yep.
That's all. Garrus likes to attack my feet when I get out of the shower and I'm walking about in my bare feet. He'll come over. He'll sort of snuggle into them at first, and then he'll be like, "Nah, it's time for the ankle. I'm going for it."
I remember before she was our cat, I would house sit for my dad, and she would hide under the dining room table and wait for me to walk across in flip flops, and she would just grab and bite down. And I complained, and my dad's like, "Oh no, she's just playing with you. That's how she likes you." I'm like, well, I'd love to see how she hates me. if that's how she loves. So no, now she's cool. So none of that. Just she'll be sitting on there purring, and then the purr becomes a bite. So cats are crazy.
Cats are wonderful beings. They're adorable. I actually had a bit of a scare the other day. Wesker was outside for at least 5 hours because I didn't notice it first because I'd been napping, and I realized that he wasn't in, and I was like, "Oh shit, where's Wesker?" And it took me about 40 minutes to find him, so there was a little bit of a worry for a little while during that time period. But he came out crying at the top of his lungs, clearly distressed that he was outside and scared. And I brought him in, and he was a bit on edge for a couple hours, but he was fine.
Yeah, well, as long as he came back in one piece, and he just hung out by the door. Mine got out one time, and we have a big dog next door, but I think she just snuck out when the back door was open, and she hung out on the porch all night for about 7 hours. And yeah, she did that where she went in, she ran straight upstairs, and we didn't see her for like a day.
I'm traumatized.
Inside. Yeah, and she still tries to make a bolt for the door, just not the back door, which is good. So
yeah, Wesker's terrible. Wesker will, if he sees an opening, he'll just slowly sneak out of it. Yep. But he always hates it. Like if you catch him doing it on the moment, and you just sort of like have to go out and get him, he's immediately crying to get back in. He hates it. Yeah. He hates it. So I don't know why he does it. It's like, come on, cat.
Like nothing they do makes sense.
Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for joining us, everyone. That's been Comics From The Multiverse. So thank you once again for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.